Check 1, 2.
Can you hear me, David Lee Scales?
Man, crystal clear.
It's just getting better and better, isn't it?
It's remarkable. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's not expensive. This is a small investment and so worth it.
I mean, I'm glad that we waited though to like really tease it out for our listeners to have crap audio for 200 episodes.
Well, it makes them appreciate it that much more.
I mean, that's what I feel. That's why we did it.
Yep. That's my Valentine's. That's my strategy in my love life as well.
Yep. You just
underperform constantly. And then on Valentine's Day, if I can like really hit it out of the park, it's like, whoa, this guy's a hero.
Man, my Valentine's Day, David Lee Scales, you forgot. You have many important roles in my life. One of them is to remind me, and I want to think this goes to the listeners too, of important upcoming events that we all need to be aware of.
Namely Valentine's Day. I mean, there's been a few other events, but yearly we have always done a show pre-Valentine's Day, giving people advice for how to impress their loved one.
And I blew it, David Lee Scales.
What happened? So, well, I blew it. Obviously, last week's show was not dedicated to Valentine's Day. I guess I did not realize that was our last show before Valentine's Day. So
Yeah,
totally my fault. But what happened?
Up.
What went down in the Smith Wallace household?
Well, I just didn't plan anything, right? I thought I knew it was coming. I can't even really blame you, but if we would have talked about it, then I would have thought, oh man, yeah, this is something I have to do. So it was just coming, and I was stuck in like that curmudgeonly, we're gonna really do this year, this corporate holiday, that kind of thing, that kind of mindset. That's not a good mindset to get in, David Lee Scales. It never is. So I just didn't plan anything, and then realized as we were going from restaurant to restaurant trying to get in, but there was no room in the inn because I had made no reservations, that I had blown the expectation, that there was an expectation that I would at least clear the lowest bar of making a reservation at a restaurant.
Yeah. I mean, going out to eat on Valentine's night is already like, that's a amateur hour move. Like, I mean, you should stop doing that after year one.
So, I mean, man, so like kid was at ballet, right? And we had like a 2-hour window.
And, yeah. Okay.
But I thought, I should have planned for that. I should have planned for the whole thing. It would have been very easy to plan for that. But so I went to a restaurant in San Diego that she had been wanting to go to. Of course we go, and they're like, no. We're like, not at the bar, no. And then the lady at the door said, I hate this day, but we're not usually open Tuesday. We're only open Tuesday for Valentine's Day. And it's like fully, but I would squeeze you in if it was any other time, but no. And so then went to a Thai place that was attached to a convenience store, and that didn't even work. And so really it was one of those things that went way late. Like I had to pick kid up from ballet, and now it's like 8 or 9 or whatever it was, and still like scrambling around trying to find something to eat. Oops.
Did Cersei hold it against you?
No, thankfully we did end up at another Vietnamese place that was so good in the end that everyone was happy.
Okay, good.
I'm sure it will, but it was a reminder to me to remind you to next year not let this happen again.
I'm going to put a notification in my calendar.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And this though, your strategy or lack thereof played out exactly like I said at the beginning of the show, which is you made them wait that night so long to be fed. They were so angry, but by the time they got fed, all that they could feel was appreciation for the fact that they had food.
It was heavenly.
Yeah, exactly. Anything would have been heavenly at that point.
What did you do, David Lee Scales?
I gave Lauren the gift of sleep.
Ooh, nice. Did you write a card that said, I'm giving you the gift of sleep?
No, my card was pretty good though. I did write a card.
Good job.
So not only do you not get a lot of sleep when your kid is, a year old, less than 2 years old, but he was sick for a good week and then lingering for another week. So he's been waking up throughout the night because he can't breathe, like kids don't breathe through their mouth, and they generally breathe through their nose, and his nose was all clogged up, and he just couldn't figure out that, dude, just open your mouth while you're sleeping and you can get through this. So it's misery. Like we had multiple nights where there was 3+ hour stretches of wide awake in the middle of the night. And sometimes it was twice a night. So we've had a rough go for a couple of weeks. So my mom, who provides childcare for us, I got secretively to agree to stay over on Tuesday night. I got a hotel not too far away, and Lauren and I went, and we actually had dinner at the very first place that we had our first date at. So the restaurant where we had our very first date, which we haven't been back to since for some reason, even though it's good. And then had an evening in a hotel, the night in the hotel for the rest of the night.
This is a lot better than the gift of sleep. This was a thoughtful,
Mhm.
well planned, well executed Valentine's Day treat.
It really was. And
Mm.
I got to say, though, my initial gift of sleep, we still didn't even receive because when you're used to waking up all the time, you still wake up all the time.
Yep.
It's like the baby wasn't there, but I would wake up to check my phone to see if my mom texted to give me an update that something went wrong, basically.
It's almost like, especially those ages, but I'm going to say having a child in general, you're in a war, right?
Mhm.
When you take your R&R and it's not good, you should just stay in the war till the war is over, right? You
Yeah,
should not break from keeping your eye on the, because that break, it screws you twice. It screws you once that you don't get the break, and then it screws you that you're lightly out of practice when you head back to war.
totally. So last night we're back at home. I slept way better last night than I did the night at the hotel.
Yeah, for sure, because you knew I'm gonna wake up.
Yeah.
This is, yeah, head in the game.
I got the monitor right here, so it will alert me. I can rest calmly knowing that this will alert me. Whereas the night before, it's just like I'm on edge.
The I've got to say, back to the sickness part, you have had a child in this era. This used to not be the way it was, David Lee Scales, let me tell you.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, kids used to get sick. Hemingway would get sick uh one day, cook through it the next day, be right as rain day 3, right? This, she, same as Austin, got sick, was sick for a whole week, and now has so much mucus garbage for another full week with no end in sight. And this happens regularly. Like,
Hmm.
I really want to say that scientifically, I'm no scientist, I'm no public health expert, but
Kelly.
it feels like quarantine really screwed everybody. That it,
Okay.
especially the kids, like that everybody lost their ability to fight disease, and so now they're
Yeah.
all back together, and their body just can't. Like they're getting. I mean, she has gotten sick more often for longer than she ever has in her life.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Well, Austin goes to college now. So
perfect.
yeah, so that's where he brought this home from. He the local community college has, these child development classes
Yeah.
basically. So he goes there and they play
Does he go to
music.
Does he go to Long Beach City College? No,
No,
Cypress.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cypress.
nice,
Yeah.
nice.
And so my mom they're there right now, actually. It's like 2 days a week. It's like you have to register like through the college. I think it's probably better for the parents to go with the kids, but we're
Yeah,
both working, so my mom goes with him. And anyways, it's good for his socialization and they do music and all this other stuff, but then he brings home sickness.
diseases. I mean, it's good for him, I suppose, that
Exactly. I think
he's
it is too.
getting. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for expose those kids.
Yeah, he's being exposed for sure. But this was the first one. Like
That he came home like with a hammer.
I think it was literally the third class that he got it in. So the first two he survived, third class, and then he was out. He missed the next week or two because of it, but he's
I don't know
back
if
now.
we've discussed this on air, but what is your policy when it comes to you getting sick? Have we discussed it? And blaming other people, like when you know the culprit, and do you feel you were irresponsible? You went out into public and brought this sickness to me, or do you feel like, hey man, life is life. Like I'm gonna bring something to you someday. So to be like, to have vitriol about getting sick is just pointless.
We have not discussed this, but it's funny that you bring it up because this is a bone of contention in the household.
Yes, it's an
I
like
never,
this is an
I,
important thing to discuss.
dude, I never ever point the finger.
Sure.
It is what it is. We're all going to get victimized at some point from every direction. So there's
Amen,
no
David
point
Lee
in pointing the
Scales.
finger. Yet I constantly have a finger pointed at me if I am a culprit. Even
If
if I'm not a culprit, if I'm just might be a culprit, I still get the finger pointed at me.
I mean, this is the rough one, right? Because I feel exactly the same as you in theory, right? Like we're all in this together to uh we're all going to get sick. Like hiding from sickness doesn't work, right?
Right.
And I'll feel this 100%, and then big performance coming up or something for kid, and somebody will plop down a like fully diseased child next to her somewhere, and I'll be like, how dare you get that germ bag away. And
Yeah.
so clearly in practice,
Yep.
I do not do what I preach, I suppose, as
Right.
much.
Right. But the flip side of that is you can't blame somebody for getting sick. Like if
No,
you know what I mean? So
I I
you
I
try
just
to
blame
avoid
my
it in
daughter for getting
certain
sick.
you what?
I just blamed her for getting sick. I
Did you?
blamed her big time. Yeah. I mean, she went to a buddy's house and had a sleepover and stayed up till 4 a.m. or something, and then slept 2 hours and came home
Oh
all
yeah.
ragged. And so I was like, see, it's really laid the shame on thick.
Yeah, you can mitigate certain things. Okay, I got another one. We're doing
Yeah.
a deep dive today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so in the midst of all of this, Lauren says, "Hey, my friend who's perpetually sick and unhealthy raves about getting these IV drip
Oh,
bags,
yeah. I've done
right?"
one.
And so I'm like, first of all, I am absolutely not taking advice from your friend who is
Yeah.
perpetually sick.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
hear you.
Like, she's the last person that I would take advice from. But Lauren's like, no, she swears by it. I'm going to go do it. So she goes and does it. She feels great that day,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is a miracle kind of thing. How much does it cost?
It's like $400.
200.
Oh, okay. You got a deal at your neck of the woods.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like 350 up here
That's insane. I
or
thought
down here.
200 was insane.
Yeah.
I was like, because I guess you can get other ones for other things like
Sure.
hydration for 80
Yep.
bucks or whatever. But when they know you're sick and your back's against the wall,
You
boom,
get
200 bucks,
pegged.
right?
So yeah.
So, well, let me finish the story real quick. So she's like, you got to go do it. But the thing was, I couldn't go do it that day. Well, the
Yeah.
next day she woke up and she was still sick.
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, but I felt great yesterday. And I go, but that doesn't matter. I'm not paying $200 for 24 hours of feeling well. She's like, I can't put a price on it. I'd pay anything to feel good for any amount of time. I'm like, well, this is where we differ. She ended up getting a second one that week. So she spent $400 that week just to feel good twice.
For
And then my mom, who is our childcare, is getting sick because of us. So then Lauren sends her to go get one. So now she spends $600 in 1 week just on IV bags for
on
people who are
60 hours of good feeling.
exactly. But in the end, now that we have the benefit of hindsight, their run was a little bit shorter than mine. So they shortened the length of the sickness. But she's like, now that we're kind of out of the woods, she's like, why are you so stubborn? Why would you not just go get the thing? And I'm like, 200, I have 200 reasons why I would not go get that thing. And she's like, but you're taking Dayquil every day. Like you're okay with putting that in your body that really isn't that effective, but you're not okay putting this other thing in your body. I'm like, $200. That's all it comes down to. I have no problem with the needle. I have no problem pumping my body full of the vitamin. $200 is outrageous,
Yeah. So like pre-Nutcracker, like I woke up and was and feeling it, right? And this was like crunch time. Like Hemingway, of course, was starring as Clara, the lead role in the Nutcracker, way too young to do it, but like, I mean, there was a bunch of pressure on. And I woke up feeling sick. And I'm like, the driving to the Nutcracker and all this. So I needed to do whatever. And wife said, hey, go get an IV drip. And so I did. It couldn't have been 350. I think it was 3 though. It was something more than 2. But I had no idea how much it was. I just went and did it.
Yeah.
But I do think like it allowed me to survive. And then it shortened it. Like
Yeah.
I made it because I was feeling rough but was doing, dress rehearsal and all that during that stretch, like 8-hour days just at the theater, plus a couple hours of driving, and I made it through not feeling great, but fine enough.
And that's what I told her. I'm like, look, if I had something I had to be at, like an important event or whatever, then I would absolutely go do it. But it makes perfect sense. It's not like some radical technology. It is pumping vitamins directly into the bloodstream, right?
Yep.
Like rather than trying to absorb it through hydration or whatever other way. So it makes sense that you would feel better with that boost of vitamins in your system. So I get it. My flip side is let it run its course, let my body do its thing. I think that over the long term, that might be better for my immunity or whatever else, if I can persevere. And I'm not miserable. I was still functioning,
I'll tell you what doesn't cost $200 a shot. athleticgreens.com/surf, where you can spend your money for your month and be pretty much just as good. I feel that my Athletic Greens program that's why I don't do an IV regularly and will not, like, Wife does them every now and again. I do not, because I
Yeah.
do athleticgreens.com/surf.
It's also how you win the Pipe Pro, by the way.
I mean, completely.
Boom.
And how you beat elimination at the Sunset Pro.
That's true. Yesterday, in fact, the one thing that Jack Robinson needs to be aware of, we should probably start a PR campaign to message this to him. Put it in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
In that Instagram post, he had it in his cupboard.
Yep.
Those probiotics need to be kept alive in refrigeration. And the other thing was he puts it in a cup, a glass, and then mixes it with a spoon.
No.
That's no way to mix it.
No. We need to send Jack Robinson a helpful welcome to the team video, I think, on behalf of. Yeah, because the individual packets don't need to be kept in the fridge, FYI. It's all fine and good, but once it gets opened, the probiotics start to leak out and die in the open air. Keep them in the fridge, keep them cold.
The mixing it with the spoon, you'll still get the intake of it, but it'll be clumpy.
Yeah.
You got to throw it in the shaker and just shake it all up. Yeah,
shake
exactly.
it up. Yeah.
Come on, Jack Robinson. That must have been his first day on the team. And so he was like excited to post a video.
I was pretty awkward with it too, probably but now as a veteran, a grizzled vet of the athleticgreens.com/surf program, like, I mean, honestly, AG1 should send us out into the field to do seminars and whatnot.
Absolutely. We are the experts.
Show the people how to do it.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I got a couple of things. Well, actually, let's do a listener email real quick. This comes from the Kook or Curran category of the show. We don't touch on this as often as we should because it really is a genius category.
It is, but it's just, I mean, that's why it has remained genius, because we haven't polluted it with bad examples.
True. And they're not plentiful. You know? But there's certain things in surfing that only Kooks do or only Currans do, and no intermediate surfers ever do. For example, wearing a rash guard over your wetsuit.
You're either the best surfer in the world or a full-on kook. Yeah,
you're either in a CT event or you're in a surf school, basically. Another example would be having a GoPro on the nose of your board. Again, Anthony Walsh getting barreled at Pipeline, or random dude who's posting the footage on Facebook.
Yep.
Okay. Email, David and Chaz. I have identified a previously undiscussed kook or Curran. The extensive on the sand pre-surf warm-up routine. I'm not talking about old guys like me that might need to stretch out their back for a minute before paddling. I'm talking about the jumping, twisting, lunging, arm swinging calisthenics program that you see pros doing on the WSL podcast. The one designed to alleviate or to activate the core and fire up the fast twitch muscles for optimum performance. This morning, I watched 3 guys do their choreographed floor routines on the sand and then barely make the paddle out on a modest 3-foot day. This leads me to a barrel or not. Judging a book by its cover. I could tell from a quarter mile down the beach that these guys couldn't surf and their feet weren't even wet. We all do it all of the time in the water. We size up our fellow surfers' ability based on 1,000 small cues from their board, wetsuit, posture, position in the lineup, etc. And we're almost always right. I am very reluctant, or I give it a very reluctant barrel. As humans, it's probably a bad trait, but as a surfer, it's pretty helpful to be able to size up someone and have a good idea if they're going to go when a set wave comes.
A brilliant email on 2 fronts. I mean, he's exactly right that only, back to Jack Robinson, will sit Indian style, crisscross applesauce on the sand doing his fire breath, or a full-on kook. If I saw anybody but Jack Robinson doing that, I would purposefully try to kick sand on them as I jog past, right?
Totally.
Like, I mean, anybody who's doing aggressive stretching, he's exactly right, is a full kook out of the gate. I've never seen one of those guys even surf competently, I will say. But he's also exactly right that judging the micro cues of judging everyone, which is funny because like when I'm done with my surf and jogging up the ramp or up the stairs or wherever I happen to be surfing, I will be judging. My judgment continues. I will be judging every person coming down too. Kook, that guy rips, kook, that guy rips, kook. Like, it's a funny part of surfing.
It's a very funny part of surfing. I am not that judgmental in any other way.
No.
And I think it's because ultimately what it comes down to is there is a finite resource that we're all fighting for, we're all battling for. And so that's if the grocery store wasn't plentifully stocked, entering the grocery store, you would also be looking at who you could outmaneuver to grab the bread, or whatever it was.
That's true. That's true. I suppose that's what it is. It must be, because I'm thinking too. I mean, I haven't been snowboarding as long as surfing, but I've been snowboarding for quite a bit. But also maybe it's because I didn't. I mean, I kind of grew. Yeah, like I get like the snowboarding wrong every single time, right? Like
Yeah,
or not every time, but there'll be people who look like full on kooks that I'm like watching as I'm riding on the chair, and then they'll get off and like kick a backflip, and off they go, right? Where I just don't maybe have the gauge of like snowboard
maybe.
wear, who makes what good, and or if there is one, if there's a way to judge, like, do mountain bikers, I don't mountain bike, but do mountain bikers go to a trail and then think kook, oh, that guy rips, kook, like, do they know from their bike and their gear and whatnot?
I have no idea. But the accuracy of
That's
our
100%. It is
picker while we're
100%.
surfing is
Yes.
very, very accurate.
I mean, I won't say 100%.
It's
There's
it's 98.
every once in a while there's the older guy, the
That's what I was
upper
gonna say.
middle-aged guy who is on like an older board,
Yeah.
and has like kind of a older whack wetsuit, and then
Yep.
paddles in and throws buckets. It's
Yep.
oftentimes a guy riding a gun-ish board on a medium-sized to small day, and you're thinking, let's kook on the gun. And then all of a sudden he's out, like, takes off, deep bottom turn, boom, off the
Yeah.
top.
There's a guy literally that I saw last time I surfed who middle-aged, overweight, balding, a little bit older wetsuit, riding a pointy thruster. I was like, I can get waves off that guy, no problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I can sit right next to him and whatever. Use him as a decoy so that I can, I've already got it all planned out in my head. And then I'm paddling out from a wave, and he's dropping in on a left, bottom turn, whack, like as vert as you could go, just like
Yeah.
boom, and like the fins drift out the back. And I'm like,
Oops.
oh wow, I got that one wrong.
Yeah.
But it's funny, what I was thinking is the 2% outliers that I am wrong about. I was thinking middle-aged guy. You described the exact guy who I
Yeah.
had just seen. So that's the only outlier that exists.
That upper middle-aged guy on an outdated surfboard model.
Used to rip,
Yeah.
and now actually still does rip. He's out of fashion now, I guess is what it
That's
is.
it.
And we're taking a lot of fashion cues as our information. But the funny thing is, this extends to me driving on the freeway, and I see somebody driving with a surfboard on their car. And I look at it, and I'm like, it's a single fin. Who rides single fins anymore? And I'm like, oh, well. Then I pull up next to the driver, and I'm looking at the driver, and I'm just like, are they like a retro guy? Is this Alex Nost that I just pulled up on?
I mean, it's so true everywhere, every
It's
single
so
place.
true.
Yeah. In the grocery store, I'll see somebody who has come in from a clear, like, that they've just had a surf. So I'll be sizing that guy up on his or her ability.
It's
Like,
so funny.
does she rip or not? Yeah.
It's so funny.
Great email.
Yeah, great email. That's a little funny part of surfing that I had never thought about before. All right, we got trans feedback from our last show, or we
Great.
could do the Sunset Pro. What do you want to start with?
Let's brush over the Sunset, because I don't think it's that interesting, and I think we can get done with it fairly quickly.
Okay, well, they've run 2 days of competition so
Yeah.
far. Day one was
Tell me, I've got the open thread ready to go. They're for sure gonna run today. Today's gonna be like
I think
full
so.
overlapping heat stage. Should I just throw it live right now?
No, I'd wait.
Really?
Well, I mean, I don't know how you run your business, but I would wait because who knows?
I'm gonna be brave. I just threw it live.
Okay, well, what if they don't run?
I live in the moment, David Lee.
Next call is in 20 minutes. Anything can happen in Hawaii.
Let's just see. Let's just see if I'm right.
Okay.
I have a feeling. I mean, the window looks bad, really, for the rest of the event, right? Isn't there something towards the end? But
I don't know.
They definitely have to run today, I think.
Okay.
Time's ticking.
Okay. The other thing is sometimes people go live on their Instagram, live feed, Strider or something, and you can get a little 20-minute preview before
Yeah.
the WSL makes the official call. Well, at any rate, they've run 2 days of competition thus far. Day one there was a gap in between the 2 days, but day one ran in what was really like kind of fun, contestable, not proper sunset, but overhead sunset, let's say, not West Peak sunset, but overhead sunset. And interestingly, they ran the women in good surf. They
Yeah.
opened up the day running the women in good surf, which I feel like was an adjustment after the misstep at Pipe.
I mean, for sure. They must have gotten so much, excuse me, so much guff for
Yeah.
that they just had, they knew they had to. They knew they had to at least not put the women out in junk. I mean, if there was going to be junk for both men and women, that the women were going to have equal first junk.
Agreed. And I thought the women surfed well.
It did.
And yeah,
Chris
it was
Moore,
actually,
Chris Moore is a real ripper at Sunset. I mean, she's a ripper anywhere, but yeah, Chris Moore is thinking, put her on the CT on the men's side.
yeah,
Let's end this trans debate once and for all. Open division with Carissa Moore.
The power kind of stance style of surfing that she has obviously translates at Sunset. And then the men ran, and there's John Florence was the notable performance of day one unequivocally. Ethan Ewing's style of surfing also translates out there, so I think there's a couple highlights there, but John was the guy, of course. And then yesterday was a much more kind of interesting day from a drama standpoint, because it was an elimination round, and they ran the men, the final heats of round one for the men, and then the entire elimination round for the men.
Horrible surf, but
yeah,
I thought JP Curry wrote it well. Like, it's not even worth talking about. It just is what it is. And to discuss how bad it was, the surf, or to lay blame at anyone's doorstep for the horrible surf is just, it's pointless.
Well, it has a point, but we hit that point over the head over and over and over again.
So we can just move right on through that.
I'll briefly touch on it. Here's the thing. It really erodes their core customers. Like, we are core customers and we're no longer watching,
It's really bad.
It's that bad. Like, I honestly, the Pipe event, I didn't watch a lot of the Pipe event. This Sunset event, I'm really tuning in and out of. I'm barely, and honestly, I think the only reason I'm even keeping tabs on it is so that we could discuss it because I have this podcast obligation. If I didn't have the podcast obligation, I'd probably not be watching it all.
For the like this Sunset, I found myself Pipe. I watched a bunch of, especially. I mean, it's nice when you can basically catch the contest in one day, like that day of Pipe where they ran overlapping heats from sun up till sundown.
Yeah.
And so you get a good feeling of the whole field, right? This one were kind of more fits and startsy. But also, like, I found myself, like I do with pro surfing, oftentimes during a contest, especially like this, where I'll have it on and be watching and like 10 minutes in say, what in the world am I doing? I should be doing anything other than this. Like, I'm not going to catch any drama. This is just, it's sort of man lost at sea. It feels like at Sunset, or women, like, and I know some people know Sunset better than others and blah, 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 but on days like that, where they're just out there kind of drifting, and I'm thinking, what am I doing? This is like, I am wasting. This is an egregious waste of time, even though this is ostensibly my job.
Yeah.
Anything else I could be doing right now would be more valuable.
I
I'll flick it off and do I'll feel so bad that I won't flick off Pipe when I feel that. But this, I'm just like, oh, I'm out of here. And then I'll check in throughout the day just for the results.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I'm doing as well. And I also have the volume down the entire time.
Oh man, I know that Joe Turpel is not there, which is odd.
Yeah.
Like, I know that they take time off and whatnot, or they get a contest off, but yeah, I mean, I guess that was his contest off. You'd think that coming so close to the Pipe event, you just see these two through and then take a break from Portugal or whatever else, but who knows?
Yeah. So again, to kind of do your job so poorly that you eradicate your core customer base, and consistently, that's something that as a business, they really, really need to evaluate, because we want to watch, and all that they have to do is figure out a way how to run in good waves, which is totally doable. At any rate, did you see? Waves. Yeah, the kind of main talking point from yesterday was the controversial Zeke Lau.
Yeah, what did you think about that?
I thought Zeke got robbed, actually.
I mean, the fact
did you watch it unfold?
I didn't watch
it.
Did you
understand?
I didn't watch it live, but you can explain to the listener what happened if you watched it live.
Yeah, so Zeke, it was an elimination round heat. Zeke Lau, this is a pet event for him. He kind of needs this result. I think that he can plan his year round doing well in the Sunset event. So there's kind of additional pressure there for him. And he found himself in the elimination round, round 2 as it is. And he was winning the entire heat based on his surfing. Leonardo Fioravanti was in second place and Rio Waida was in third place. There was 2 minutes left. Zeke had priority. So he's in control in every measure. The third place, Rio Waida, he was basically, Rio needed a small score, 4.5 or something like that. So Zeke was kind of sharking Rio to make sure that if Rio paddled for a wave, Zeke would, of course, take that wave with priority. Well, there was a marginal wave that Rio paddled for. So Zeke kind of paddled in on the shoulder just to see if Rio was going to get it and then withdrew from the wave. Neither of them went. Well, the priority judges, again, there's 1 minute and 50 seconds left. 1 minute later, the priority judges reviewed that footage and determined that Zeke made a concerted effort for that wave. So they flipped priority. So now there's 50 seconds left in the heat. Priority is now flipped. Zeke has last priority, but is unawares. So he reportedly, we find out after the fact, when he made that paddle for that wave with Rio, he checked in with priority just to say, like, okay, I made a little bit of a paddle for that wave. Did the priority judge deem that I made a concerted effort or did they not? And he checked in. He still had priority.
Did he look at his Apple Watch?
I don't know that.
If the Apple Watch failed here,
that'd be interesting if that was the culprit again.
The whole point of this whole thing, the Apple Watch does 2 things. It has heat time and priority. That's the only things that has.
Yeah. Does it have the scores?
Yeah, and the scores. But okay. Yeah, I mean, heat time, scores, and priority.
Okay. Things. So if that was a culprit, that'd be interesting. But the point is that Zeke did his due diligence after he paddled for that wave by checking, and he was still with priority. The judges had an extra delayed call and then switched the priority with less than 1 minute left. So with less than 1 minute left, you're really focused on where your competitor is and what waves are coming. And ultimately, a wave came. Rio went, Zeke burned him, thinking he had priority. Turns out he didn't, and ended up that call being against him, and he got last place in the heat, lost the heat. So he was pissed. He stormed up the beach. The camera kind of jostled and pulled away to not film the drama, essentially.
To make sure. That's a good job. World Surf League does best at what's not crazy, interesting stuff.
And the commentators don't discuss it either.
No.
So we're watching this unfold. Kaipo is at a loss for words where he's like, oh, I guess Zeke didn't know that he had priority. Wow. Unfortunately, this is sport. And occasionally there's controversial calls in sport. Anyways, moving on, and goes on to the next heat. And it's like, well, I just saw Zeke running up the beach and I saw the camera kind of jostle, as if they're like not sure that they should film it or not film it. And Kaipo seems flustered. What are people not talking about? Well, thankfully, Leonardo Fioravanti discussed it so he won that heat based on that priority call. He ends up in first, and he ends up addressing it with Alex McCord and basically explains everything that I just explained.
Leo's becoming a hero for the people, by the way.
He really is.
Yeah.
He really is. That's the other storyline here, is like, if everybody of all of the post-heat interviews we see every day, 20, he's the only one who says anything interesting.
I mean, and
all it is him telling the truth, and it's him telling us what the WSL commentators should be telling us in every heat.
It's wild, yeah, but continue on with what Leo told the audience.
So Leo basically said exactly what I said. He explained that there was that time delay, and he said, I figured out that priority had switched, and when I saw Zeke paddling for that wave that he actually burned Rio on, I even said to him, Zeke, don't go, like, you don't have priority. But Leo also explained it's a wild, we're out to sea, there's wind, there's waves, we can't really hear everything. So even if the beach announcers called it out, we can't always hear it unless it's like docile at that moment. And in that moment, that last minute, you don't have time to be looking at your watch. I mean, if you are tracking your competitor, if you are paddling for waves, you don't have time to be looking at the watch. So he's like, honestly, the priority judges should not make a call that late.
No.
And secondly, they need to deliver the information effectively, because our first primary job out here is surfing the two best waves in the heat and keeping our, like, we don't have time to be focused on those other things. So
I mean, it really is true that in order for Zeke, I think, and I think Zeke has his detractors amongst surf fans. Like, he's, for whatever reason, I don't think he's a fan favorite generally.
no,
Nothing against Zeke at all, but I think part of it probably has to do with that kook Ultimate Surfer, which, I mean, what a career busting move for him. But anyway, all to say, he's very likely to fall off tour again, based on, like you said at the start, this is one of his strong events, right? And he's
yeah,
already had a phenomenal winter, right? I mean, surfed great at the Eddy,
yeah,
uh, had a great backdoor shootout, like and then to have it end in a whimper based on World Surf League incompetence
yeah,
would be pretty dang frustrating.
totally. And I'm one of his detractors. I would not normally
Sure.
sympathize with Zeke. And I feel like maybe it's karmic. Like, yeah, he's kind of had it coming. Like, remember his paddle thing with John,
Yeah.
like, he's a dick. And like, if he's going to implement strategy at some point for the win, then it's gonna get used against him at some point for a loss. So it is fine. It is what it is. However, there is someone to blame here, and it's the priority judges. So I think the priority judges got this wrong twice.
Yeah.
They got it wrong by waiting a minute, and they got it wrong, by the way, by deeming the priority switch for him paddling for that wave with Rio.
Sure.
Like, if you really go back and watch that wave, neither of them were actually ever going to catch that wave. Neither
Yeah.
of them made a concerted effort. Rio kind of stroked just to see, like, because sometimes it lurches up at the last second,
Sure.
and at that point you then put your head down and make the concerted effort. So he just kind of had a little stroke in to take a glimpse, and Zeke did his job on the shoulder of just taking a glimpse in to see what Rio was going to do, but there was no concerted effort. So I think it's a wrong call to even deem it a switch of priority at that point. But to do it a minute later
I mean,
is the
that's,
problem.
to me, the judgment call on did he try or did he not, right? Like, because that's
Yeah.
a straight judgment call. So if you decided he tried, you better decide that second and switch it and let him know, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that was your call, because the wrong call for, like the Super Bowl just happened this last week, and the controversial holding call at the end, right? It can go back and forth, and obviously Eagles fans will feel totally ripped off by it, and Chiefs fans will be happy about it, but still, it's a a judgment call from the ref. Priority
Yeah.
is a judgment call from the priority judge. So whatever, live with the results, but to delay it and delay it to the point where Zeke still thinks he has priority, because obviously Zeke wasn't just out there burning Rio.
No.
Like, wouldn't
He
have
was,
done it had he thought that he had, or yeah, didn't have priority.
I know these all for all the rules that the WSL tries to apply onto the thing, it really only complicates. Like, it's so subjective every step of the way, and their effort to try to objectify it
Yeah,
makes it
silly.
it's a futile effort.
I mean, it just, again, I think, and I wouldn't be the only one thinking this, which is the World Surf League is perpetually making itself look completely incompetent. And at some point, looking incompetent becomes the same as being incompetent. And it's
Totally.
just it's an incompetent league run by incompetent people at
It
the end.
really, and again, running in good waves solves almost all of these little squabbles, because if the waves were 12 feet, it would be pretty clear in almost every
Sure.
heat who the best surfer is in the given heat. But when they're not, you have people battling with fives, which that entire heat was, and then trying to implement other little strategies to win the heat like
To win
this.
with
And
a
so,
five. Yeah.
yeah, he would never be hounding the other surfer in the lineup if there's a 12-foot set on the horizon throughout the
Yeah.
entire heat. You know what I mean? You just focus on surfing,
I
and
mean,
that's it.
but then triple down on the incompetence. So exactly like you touched on, if there's one interesting thing that'll happen in a given day of bad surf, World Surf League guaranteed will pull the camera. And but the
Yeah.
weird thing is, the especially weird thing is for sure Box to Box Films and their Make or Break television program were there to capture it all, right? And so it's not like they're not afraid. They're not afraid of the controversy. The like World Surf League is incompetent at broadcasting too. Like that would have been the only really interesting thing that day. They should have kept the camera on Zeke, see what he did. Kaipo and whoever was in the booth with him should have discussed. Okay, they should have went over the footage. What do you think, right? Which is the problem. I was thinking this back to the NFL thing, right? Greg Olson, I think, was in the booth calling it as the color man, and right away that holding call that ended the game, he was like, "This is a horrible call. This is a horrible call," right? And he kept on, like, he just couldn't stop being like amazed by what a bad call it was, where it was just going on and on of this is, and they would show it from all the angles and I'm just
Mhm.
not seeing it here, et cetera, et cetera. And I was thinking, how do they do this? And then I was remembered, oh yeah, because this is Fox broadcasting the NFL. It's not the NFL broadcasting itself,
Yeah.
which I would imagine the NFL even broadcasting itself would be smart enough to know that there's judgment calls and there's whatever, but it's getting people engaged in those things has value. World Surf League is so dumb that can't even discuss the interesting thing that happens in front of them.
I thought to myself, I can't wait to hear from Zeke. And then I
You went quiet.
realized there's zero chance that they hand a microphone to Zeke at this point. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Which is insane. Like, why would you not address it with the person who experienced it and let them speak about it?
And at least try and have him push the mic away angrily or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Then, I mean, you have tension and you have a storyline and you have something.
Yeah. Well, I really hope that Leonardo recognizes this role that he's filled this year
Yeah.
and embraces it and
No
continues
kidding.
to bring it, because all that he is doing, like, he's not saying anything
Controversial.
behind like a non-disclosure. He's not
No.
revealing any secret information. He's just telling you what's happening in the water. That's it. Which is
Simple.
what Strider should be doing when he's in the water. It's what the commentators should be doing while they're in the booth. Like, the fact that the commentators have some sort of a fourth wall that we're not allowed to see past, that they're operating, even though they're supposed to be operating, reflecting the viewer's kind of experience, is really
Sure.
what they should be doing,
And explaining to the
providing
viewer.
and providing insight from on the ground to the viewer, what we're watching. That's their role. The fact that they don't, and instead they have an invisible wall that they're operating behind, is insane. And so for Leo to pull back that curtain and just be like, hey, in the water, my watch didn't work. Hey, in the water, Zeke didn't know. It's like, wow, this is insight. This is really, really insightful.
I mean, Leo is like a surfer reborn this year, having fallen off. He comes back with, like, it feels with a real air of nothing to lose, both in his, like, hey man, I'm gonna call it as I see it, both in my interviews and like, he's surfing well, right? He's getting through heats. I mean, where did he end at Pipe? He ended pretty
Second.
well. Yeah, second. That's it. Ended very well. Yeah, so I am a big fan of new Leo.
It's funny how personality-wise, he's filling the role of his fellow European in Jeremy Flores. Jeremy Flores always played that role as well.
I mean, Jeremy Flores I didn't realize how much he was missed until Leo, but now that I remember how much he's missed, but I have Leo.
I know. Yeah. I wonder what that is. Obviously, it's France versus Italy. They're not the same country, but the fact that they're both European, I think maybe.
Well, I mean, but Leo grew up ostensibly in France too, or a ton of it. I mean, Belly lives right there.
Yeah, he's worldly in that way.
Yep.
So we talked about the WSL's new policy regarding trans athletes last week.
We did.
Could you imagine? We actually got a bunch of feedback about our conversation.
I can't even.
Hard to believe that this would be a
hot button.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
So would you like to hear a phone call?
Yes.
I got a phone call and then a
ooh, is this a 4-minute and 22-second phone call?
That's the edited version, by the way. The listener line cuts you out at 3 minutes. This came in as 2 separate calls. I edited them down and put them together. And then after this call, I've also got an email from somebody as well. So,
hey guys, heard your take, and I think you're being too dismissive of the WSL's new transgender policy for women's surfing. Quoting you guys here, I didn't ever see this as a story. And, quote, there are way more important issues in the world than this. Well, I am not sure how many voicemails or DMs you've received on the subject, but I am pretty confident that a large percentage of your listeners view this as a real story. You guys are all things surf now, whether you like it or not, and we love you for it. So these same policies, as you're well aware of, are currently playing out in high schools and colleges across the nation. And they're having real-world consequences of displacing some women for acknowledgement in their field and, in some cases, opportunity for scholarships. With the amount of money the WSL is putting up, I don't think it's a real reach that it won't be long before someone takes up the opportunity to compete against the women after only having to complete the very low bar of a year of hormone therapy. And I spoke to some of my female friends, surfers, including my own mother, and they're unanimously not into this. It's seen by them mostly as yet another example where men can come in and dominate and displace women. I think the question from them is like, as a society and culture, are we okay with this? To their mind, they thought we worked to overcome all of this in the 60s and 70s. My mom even said, what were we burning our bras for? David, you'd also said you were surprised by the vitriol over this subject, of how many people were worked up, and that it seemed like it was mostly a conservative point of view to be against this policy. I think I disagree. I think a lot of people do. The pushback from this is from an array of political and social viewpoints. I mean, I grew up with a very liberal mindset and still maintain one socially. And there are a lot of people who just view this more as an issue of objective reality, which is, in this case, that women have earned the right to play on a fair and equal playing field, and that we should honor and protect that. Obviously, that's up for debate, and we should continue to debate it, but I think that's where a lot of people are coming from. Unfortunately, saying that out loud, it's painted as transphobic, or that one is calling for harm against transgender. In my own circle, I'm not seeing that ever being the case. That it is unfortunate if anyone ever calls for that or says that, but I don't think that the vast majority of people, that's not what's going on when they're saying no to this policy. So, unfortunately, when you say that stuff, it ends the discussion, the debate, because people are afraid of that. I think you call it the alphabet mafia. Look, folks I've talked to have compassion for transgender folks, believe they have the right to exist in society freely and safely, but that they can't have everything, unfortunately, as you noted, I think, in the show. And in this case, that everything isn't being able to come in and push women aside. Now, the WSL can put in the policies it chooses, of course, but that doesn't mean that people are backing it. Case in point, I actually read the WhatsApp surfer thread, the one between the WSL leadership and surfers. And I can tell you with certainty, 99% of the women and the men on the tour do not support this. They weren't consulted, and the WSLs hid behind the weak explanation of, we're just following what the ISA is doing. Slater's the only one that I'm aware of, maybe I'm wrong, that has had a public take on this, and his solutions seem to make the most sense. And it solves the concerns on all sides of this issue. Start a transgender division. If the WSL isn't for that solution, then my suggestion is take away all divisions so that the league can truly stand up to the standards it has set in equality for all. Thanks you guys for listening. Sorry it was a bit long. It's a big subject, but I'd love to hear you talk more about it. I look forward to what kinds of conversations happen as this unfolds. All right. See you out there. Late.
Thoughts?
Insightful. I completely agree with the premise of it, right? Like I think that sport, like we discussed last week, I think that sport is this one area and this unfair thing we call life where humans can try to regulate fairness. And the transgender issue, especially, or only really, transgender women, competing against, it's a thing, the vocabulary is so weird now. Do we call them naturally born women? Or what? Like biological females?
Yeah.
It's essentially unfair, especially with low bars to leap, right? And so that's why I think, again, that's what I said last week, and I will stick to it, is in this life, you cannot always have your cake and eat it too. Like if you're a biologically born male, then I'm sorry, you are never going to be allowed to compete against women in sport. Full stop. That's what I think, right? It just is what it is. And so you can compete against men if you're a naturally born male, or as the caller said, there can be a trans division. The problem with the trans division is it's going to be silly, right? There'll be like one person in it. I mean, there's how many trans, there's one that we know of right now, Sasha Jane Lowers. And I'm sure clearly there's plenty of other trans surfers. I'm not denying that, but professional, actual competitive professional trans surfers, right? Ain't that many of them. So, and then, like, I agree with the open division thing too. If that's what you're going to do that. Have an open division. Fine, great. But who's going to surf there?
It'll also become silly, as you put it, and silly, not an ideology, but silly in terms of there's too much variation in talent in that open division, right? Like, all that we want to see is the people who are at the peak level of performance trying to best one another. And if it's that open, then it's a lot less interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
so the market will decide, the market will watch that and go, hey, it turns out this isn't very competitive. Why am I wasting my time watching this? I want to see super tight competition.
And I mean, I hear what the caller says too. I didn't mean to be dismissive of the issue last week of, like, I suppose I was dismissive of it as it relates to surfing because it doesn't affect surfing like we talked about. There's no transgendered woman with stickers on her board ready to, head up into the women's ranks of the CT, right? It doesn't exist, so it's purely theoretical. I hear that and understand and know also in real life, in other sports, as caller talks about, college scholarships, all this stuff, it is an issue, right? Totally. Again, I mean, I don't want to sound transphobic. I'm not being transphobic, but or don't think I'm being transphobic, but yeah, because it's nothing against that. It's an issue of fairness and an issue of can't have your cake and eat it too. Sorry, like there's a bunch of stuff I'd like to do that I can't do. So what am I going to do about it?
I think it's such a political issue, obviously, like it's tied to political parties, and so that starts to muddy the waters. But I think I can say almost universally, everybody believes that everybody else should feel safe in the world. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what your sexuality, your orientation, your gender identity is, all of it, I think we can all kind of agree, everybody deserves safety and security and to feel, all of that. That's fine, full stop. Competing in a sporting event is neither here nor there in relation to that conversation. And so competing professionally in the sporting event also is neither here nor there as it relates to that conversation. And so where that crux is what you're saying, which is not everything is for everybody. And so trans people, I hate to tell you, but these sporting events were developed and refined to a point of high entertainment and all this stuff that comes with the dollars attached to it and all that by these categories over here, which are male and female, chromosomal
born.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's how this exists. It was designed. It didn't consider you in mind. That is what it is,
Yep.
So we still love you, still want you to feel accepted and all that sort of stuff. And
just
so, can't compete in these categories. So yes, maybe there is a trans category that we end up developing, or that people end up developing, that then has all of the tension and competition and competitiveness that exists in this other thing as well. But we would have to design that,
Sure. And and maybe in the future there will, this issue, there'll be so many trans athletes that it'll make perfect sense to have a division and all that stuff. But slotting people into the women's division, again, you screw women who have been on the short end, had the short end of the stick for ever.
I thought that was the most interesting part of the call, was which I don't think we really touched on last week, which is the women feeling subjugated by men. And again, I think the trans community would say in this scenario, this isn't men subjugating the women. This is a trans woman, maybe.
That's a woman. I mean, ostensibly a woman.
Yeah, in that it is a trans woman who is coming in and asking for equal rights. But there are a lot of women who view this as that's still a man, and I'm just being subjugated by the man who, we worked decades to overcome, basically. So I think that's kind of an interesting take. Let me read to you this email, though. Takes a totally different stance. Says, hey, I just wanted to chime in since I may be one of your only listeners with a trans sibling. It's a really interesting world, Using the pronouns is challenging to get used to, but overall, it's not as strange as people imagine, at least not in my case. I think the fairness issue is pretty obvious and overplayed. It's the only part that most people can relate to. The whole experience is more than that, obviously. And although I would defend my siblings' right to do anything they want to do, they don't need permission or approval from anyone to live their life except in institutional contexts. At least in the majority of cities throughout the United States, most people are conscious enough to live and let live. I think that organizations are trying to set the stage for a future where trans people are an accepted third sex, and they're trying to get ahead of that. As far as the cause, we are from an artistic family and grew up knowing that life is filled with bizarre possibilities that possibly influenced it, but who really knows, who really cares? It's very interesting to speculate, but the opinions of others only matter as much as your respect for their opinion does. Realistically, who can say anything remotely true about anyone else's sexuality other than maybe their personal sex partners? The interview, the the Yvonne Chouinard interview that Jamie Brisick did for the Surfers Journal podcast was incredible. As he said many times, living is easier if you break the rules. I'd assume that my sibling is going to have it all figured out in the next few years, and the rest of us will be considered old dinosaurs. So just to brag a little bit, my sibling is a verifiable genius with a Presidential Scholar Award and many, many accomplishments. I think people overlook that someone who is able to bridge the gap between man and woman intellectually may have some special stuff going on. I'm a lucky person with an interesting, talented, and mostly sane family. I'm sure that some people are not so lucky. But in some cultures, it's important to remember that people who exhibited traits of both genders in ancient times were sometimes considered mystics and were often regarded as some of the greatest craftsmen, entertainers, and artists. Just wanted to mention that. It's no secret that the alternative community has contributed greatly to the arts over history. Not that it relates to sports necessarily, but it's always makes me cringe to hear normal, quote unquote, people talk about trans issues, myself included. I only trust my sibling to tell me what's what with matters of themselves and their community. I think that the sports issue will work itself out over time, but wouldn't it be great if surf competition was running nonstop in killer swell? If that was the case, you could just put everyone out together and it would be really interesting to just find out who is the best human, not within a given category. You guys are doing all right talking about this stuff. It's very difficult, obviously, so good luck. But if you wind up mentioning any of this, please don't use my name or anything. It's all good to mention it, to read the email. It's a crazy life. Most of us are lucky to have some basic path generously set out for us. Keep up the work.
I love it. I love it. Great. I mean, phenomenal insight, well written, well presented. Yeah, I mean, the fact, I suppose, what makes this issue annoying is the culture war aspect.
Yeah.
That and I think you and I discuss, of course, from the outside. I mean, I got a long DM from somebody rage filled, right? About,
Oh, really?
oh yeah, about my ignorant position and blah 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 blah. But like, it was a full on culture war DM, right? Of
Yeah.
like a cultural warrior on the other side. Where I'm like, can't be bothered with your damn culture war. Like, it's not interesting to me. It is like, you are not engaged in any real way in anything. You are throwing gas on bonfires and thinking that you're somehow changing the world, where you're doing nothing. You are an absolute waste of space in this way. Not a waste of space as a human, but you're bonfiring is, it's so boring to me. The culture war and people who get off on the culture war, it's because it's entertainment for them at some level,
Totally.
right? And
Yeah.
they think that it's not. They think that it is there. They, on both sides, on the conservative side or the liberal side, are standard bearers of truth and righteousness, right? Really, they are entertaining themselves to death by being angry at Disney for being woke, or
Yeah.
on the flip side, by being
Having a
so ignorant
black
and
Ariel.
dumb. Yeah,
Yeah.
that you're. I mean, it's just it's tired. The culture war is tired, and I feel like we're just at the very start of it.
Well, that's a scary thought.
I mean, look at we got another presidential election coming up, and it's going to be pure culture war.
I
I think
know.
the candidates feel like that's what they get elected on, instead of, oh, maybe we should actually care if poor kids have school lunches, or maybe, oh, another mass shooting, maybe we should think about that. Nope, let's care about sneaking if Disney is using they them pronouns or not.
Right. Well, what I like about that email is that it resets the focus on humanity.
Yeah,
Like it barely even touched on how it relates to sport, because that's kind of the least important thing,
yeah,
because the reality is well, not only humanity, but kind of the detail about these could be my trans sibling is actually a gifted human being.
yeah.
And so with somebody who's operating in this level of awareness and functionality, like they could be very unique members of society making very unique contributions. Let's not malign them. Let's
I,
recognize them as a valuable member and consider what they're bringing to the table. I think that's an important kind of.
Completely. And anybody who I think is like, hey, let's maybe pump the brakes on sport inclusion, but then also spilling that over into, which I see a lot, where it seems like a lot of vitriol and a real nasty position vis-a-vis the transgendered community is totally unacceptable.
Yeah,
Like, to malign, or just because you think, you know, I don't want them in sports and they're all mentally disabled somehow, right?
right.
Like that's
Yeah.
like there's so much of that crossover of like, oh, if you're trans, then you're clearly, you have a major mental malfunction, which, come on, like leave off that, like be open to thinking, I don't know everything in this world. I maybe know or have an opinion on fairness in sport,
Yeah.
but the rest of it, I'm just going to actually pump my own brakes and think, maybe if I just shut my mouth and open my ears a little bit, or try to get to know somebody from a community that I have like a fully formed opinion on, et cetera, that maybe things would work out a little better.
Yeah. Having the fully formed opinion on things that we really don't have any exposure to, information, data on, any of that
Yeah.
stuff is a very kind of ignorant and dangerous position to hold. I also think it's a shame, like, to think about like, if that is true, if there is genius attached to, in this example, the sibling, but maybe just to let's say the trans community at large. Let's just
Yeah.
throw that out there. If there is genius attached or some special intellectual power, then it really is a shame that Sasha Jane Lowerson spends all of her time
Longboarding.
talking about fairness.
Yeah.
Yeah, longboarding too. But talking about fairness, every conversation that somebody wants to have with Sasha Jane Lowerson is, explain to me why it's fair for you to compete against women. It's a
Yeah.
waste of her time if
Yeah.
she is in fact got an intellectual gift. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of consider it through the lens of like, how about just treat them fairly? How about just not make them defend anything ever and just let them exist and make meaningful contributions to society or
Yep.
arts or whatever it is,
Yep.
So
And not professional longboarding. It doesn't need any more contributions.
It's not even a thing. It's an oxymoron, professional longboarding. So that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So in other wacky, kind of hyper controversial news, quote, breaking, Kelly Slater hits pharmaceutical giant with bombshell allegation and reveals own mother's shock reaction to COVID vaccine. Quote, my friend's mother is in the hospital in Florida right now. She's dying slowly from the effects of the Pfizer vaccine, exclamation point, end double quotes.
Boom, Kelly dropping hammers.
He went on to say, my mom lost feeling in her jaw and tongue and her hands and her feet, end quote. What is this story?
I mean, I think it's, I'm not even going to kick Kelly under the bus on this one. I'm going to say this dumb vaccine thing that everyone had to get, all fine and good, right? Whatever. But the mandating it, and then with some real questions about both efficacy at this point. And honest to goodness, people like no doubt having heart problems and things like that. And I'm not going to say it's everyone, obviously, is, and whatever, but man, the people who are like full on will defend big pharma like to the hilt for some unknown reason, like that big pharma doesn't have, and I guess even to call it big pharma, then now I sound like a conspiracy nut, right? But that companies that are making billions upon billions of dollars don't have some kind of, maybe they're not always acting in the best interest of everyone, of society, when they're
Right.
making billions of dollars. But in this dumb debate now, like if you're, to me, again, I guess this falls under the culture war uh umbrella, but if you want to be a good liberal person, then you've got to go out and defend big pharma or defend Pfizer, defend a multi-billion-dollar company all the way. No,
Right.
the vaccine thing, it was right across the board. I mean, let's be honest, things didn't really work. Imagine that, like, if this was the polio vaccine and they like gave it to everybody and it was like, oh, it's like, let's not even 50-50, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what? And sure, I'm not anti-vax. I'm not a, in hindsight 2020 and all this stuff, but to defend it today. And so I'll say good on you, Kelly, for going out and at least poking the bear.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy that there's a bear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kelly, so the story for listeners who didn't see this, Kelly participated in a panel discussion. I think it was a podcast, probably.
Yeah. Looked like it
What?
from the photo.
Yeah, well, I watched the video too. The thing is, it's been reposted and used for other people who have, let's say, much more extreme views, use this clip in their media to kind of move their agenda. The thing that Kelly was participating in was not, from what I could tell, not that extreme at all.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of experts, doctors included. It looked like there was 12 plus people chiming in on their experience and kind of taking an assessment of the efficacy of the vaccine with a couple of years worth of hindsight. So Kelly's chiming in as one of the greatest athletes of all time who was opposed to getting the vaccine and was relying on his natural immunity and his wellness to help him navigate through the system, right? And then he continues to speak on how he was actually anti against the mandating. Like, he's like, what I have the biggest problem with is the government telling me that I have to get this thing that is not fully vetted.
Reasonable opinion. And I can't understand why people don't think that's reasonable, even if they disagree.
So that is the story. Like, Kelly, first of all, has an opinion. So he's entitled to his opinion no matter what. But it's also a reasonable opinion.
It is that's what I don't understand at this day and age. It seems like you're not allowed to disagree with somebody's opinion without saying that it's insane, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to say, Kelly Slater, you are a conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer kook. You don't believe in science. You believe in your own silly protocols and you're listening to full-on quacks, et cetera, et cetera. You can't just say, Kelly, that is a reasonable opinion that you have that I disagree with, right? If you're on the other side, if you think, I think the government had every right to mandate, it was important to keep the community safe, blah, 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 whatever the positions are, where Kelly then could say, and reasonably, I disagree with you. And that's it.
Right.
Like, how can we not do that anymore?
Well, yeah, I guess it's hard to talk about this without falling into one of the conspiracy camps and then being labeled as such.
I mean, I'm fully going to get labeled for such by saying I agree with Kelly, like,
totally.
and not necessarily the letter of what Kelly said. I agree with Kelly's overall stance of why are you letting the government do this? Why can't we say that Pfizer and these guys should be questioned? And also, like, whatever. I mean, it's reasonable. It is a reasonable thing to think.
Well, Kelly is using his personal experience. He says, this happened to my mom.
Yeah.
This happened to my friend's mom. This is my experience. Like, I don't run as much data as Pfizer's running for what. So he's acknowledging, I know this is a limited sample set, but this is my
This
experience.
is what I saw with my own eyes.
And I've lived my life in a way where health and wellness was put at the forefront. And so I've always had control and taken more care than anybody I know for my own health and wellness. And I'm going to continue to. And I did for the last 2 years, and I've benefited from it, and I'm totally fine. So all you other people and all these other policies that you've put in place, do not put those things forward. They put profits forward. They put here. So the other data that I've collected is all of the errors that you guys have made. So why would I allow you to mandate something for me based on your track record versus my track record is kind of what he's saying.
Which is again, whether you disagree or not, is a reasonable opinion for Kelly to have. And whether you're looking at the data Kelly's looking at and saying, no, but there's this data on the other side, right? And then it becomes a data war, all fine and good. But Kelly is reasonable. Like he is a reasonable man holding a reasonable position. And for him to get dragged through the town square,
I know.
That's what should scare people, is that your reasonable position may become culturally or on one side or the other, like irreasonable and unreasonable, unreasonable, and not only that, dangerous. And so you're going to be branded as a menace to society that needs to get just dragged.
Yeah.
Silly.
I talked about Bethany Hamilton last week speaking out, and Kelly this week speaking out. I applaud both of them
for sure
for it, whether or not you agree with their stance.
Free speech still matters.
Yeah, free speech absolutely matters. And we're living in a time where it's dangerous to speak your mind. You know what I mean? And so even though they are saying reasonable things,
it's dangerous to say a reasonable thing.
They could easily get canceled. And so Kelly, what's funny about this with Kelly is we see him engaging in things that aren't like that, like whatever show he was doing, it wasn't like Joe Rogan. It wasn't going to get like 30 million views. It was just this small little thing. So I see him engaging in these tiny little things sometimes. And I appreciate that he takes the time to actually do all that little stuff, for things that are meaningful for him.
I mean, I think Kelly is, whether or not he's like the smartest man on earth, I think Kelly enjoys the exercise of thinking, though.
Yeah,
which is nice to see, right? He likes to ponder things, and he likes to be engaged with stuff, which again, agree or disagree with where he concludes, that is nice. It's nice to see somebody trying to engage.
Well, and the reason why I bring up Joe Rogan, I could see him doing it, or somebody doing it on Joe Rogan, even if they were going to catch a bunch of flack, simply because it's going to get 30 million views.
For sure.
So they're doing it to elevate their own brand, essentially, even if it creates a lot of controversy. That might be, in fact, why they're doing it. So I like that Kelly is engaging just at this low level thing that's never going to get a lot of views, just because he has an opinion about it and he's passionate about it and he's willing to share his opinion without considering or being concerned about the backlash.
Do you know why that is?
Why?
Kelly is a gangster with a gangster name.
So I did not read this article. I'm going to let you explain what that even means.
It had a good headline on it too.
Yeah.
So Kelly, did we talk about the Andrew Tate thing last week?
Yeah.
We did. Tweets. Okay. So again, the two tweets that Kelly had liked, one was from Andrew Tate, a famous misogynist, and also from this guy named, I can't remember the rapper's name, but Bryson, I can't recall. We'll stick it in the notes at the end of the day. Anyway, so that guy said a quote that also, or tweeted, when is Hollywood going to realize people don't want to watch a bunch of movies people don't want to watch movies with a bunch of gays in them? You like that tweet. And so this guy tweeted again, did another one. Your gangster name is, you take the color of the shirt you're wearing and the thing you last ate is your gangster name. So Kelly responded to this, Blue Cake, so Kelly's gangster name is Blue Cake, which is, shut your mouth. Kelly's name is Blue Cake, which is funny. But also I went down a little deep dive down this people don't want to watch movies with a bunch of gays in them rapper. And he's famous for, it was like the MAGA rhyme challenge or something where he had people do good raps to Donald Trump speeches. So,
Interesting.
yeah, he's like a Donald Trump rapper apparently. But in any case,
Is he white with
no,
tattoos?
no,
Oh,
he's African American or black or yeah, whatever. But yeah, so Kelly, the thing about Blue K, I mean, the fact that Kelly's responding is funny to your gangster name. The fact that Kelly's name is Blue Cake is funny, but also what I found most funny, do you like cake?
no.
I don't like cake either. I don't know really an adult who really likes cake. And so I was trying to,
Adults eat a ton of cake without liking it.
yeah, precisely. But I mean, that's true. I don't. Do you? At a birthday?
I encounter cake and I don't generally turn it down. But
Like
but you're right. If given the choice, pie or
pie
cake, I'll choose pie. If it's
every
ice
time.
cream or cake, I choose ice cream. If it's creme brulee or cake, I choose creme brulee.
So then going further down the rabbit hole, though, I was just pondering Kelly eating cake and thinking, was he at a kid's birthday party? Because you don't get cake at an adult's
No.
birthday party typically. So
Yeah.
picturing
It
Kelly
was his
on the North,
birthday.
it was his birthday. Kelly was eating his own cake.
Yeah. That's what it was.
Oh, that's what you solved. That's
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
Blue cake. So Kelly
Blue
got a
shirt.
cake for his birthday.
Cake.
Cake.
I'm
Yeah.
my rap name would be Black AG1.
Yeah, black. That's a good rap name.
Although I did have banana bread this morning, which is
Ooh.
cake adjacent.
Yep. I mean, banana bread though, with a bunch of butter, anything you can put butter on, you're fine. That removes it from cake.
I don't know if this is a common thing, but my mom introduced me to this when I was a kid, and it's cream cheese on banana bread.
Oh, that'd be just fine. I've
So
never done it, but when you say it, that sounds just about as fine as it gets.
because you can imagine cream cheese frosting.
Sure, love
But this
cream
is
cheese frosting.
This is without the powdered sugar in it.
Oh, oops. If I love cream cheese frosting, that does mean I really like carrot cake. Oops.
Carrot cake's a great cake.
I like cake.
Carrot cake is a great cake.
With a good cream cheese frosting.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of because of the cream cheese frosting, probably
Yeah.
partially. We've got a good family recipe. We've got a family cookbook that's like been, generations passed down and added to and stuff. And there's a great carrot cake in there that uses a can of crushed pineapple in the recipe. So
that
imagine
sounds
how that
just
moisturizes.
great.
Yeah, it's really good.
Does it have raisins in it?
You can. It's an optional ingredient.
Okay.
So you can, and that and the walnuts are optionals.
Oh, nice.
All right. Well, let's go do a quick commercial break and then we'll come back with some Barrel or Nas. All right, Chaz, we're back. We're back from commercial that we just cut away to for LinkedIn, of course, linkedin.com/surf.
Get your work, people.
Yeah. Go get a job through linkedin.com/surf. All right. So we've got Barrel or Nah. By the way, did the WSL event start? Is the question.
Sure did. And
Okay,
I was
did.
right. I was correct. I feel good. I gave the people like 5-10 minutes, whatever it was, 20 minutes even, to warm up, to think about it, to ponder the day's event. What's going on so far?
Jack Robinson's in the water against Carlos Munoz.
So they haven't started overlapping yet, or are they?
Not quite.
Okay.
So the ads are playing, so I can't see what the waves look like, but I can see the scores.
What do you think about the World Surf League's ad run so far this year?
It hasn't gotten so redundant that I'm annoyed, but again, I've been listening with the volume down. I haven't really been.
They're
Well,
more
that's the
diverse, but they're way longer. Like if you come
really?
in through the YouTube, you will catch yourself. I swear it feels like 10 minutes, but it can't be more than 2. But you'll catch 2 minutes plus of ads coming in.
Wow.
Which that never happened before.
Okay. Well, the ads that I've been seeing, I'm reminded now because I'm watching them, are the Apple Watch ads and the Sambazon ads with Coco.
Coco. Looking cute. Coco.
Yeah, Coco's great. But again, I haven't been watching 8 hours straight like I usually do, and I've been watching with the sound down, so less offensive.
Smart.
Okay. Barrel or Nah. You know what? This was a call, but I don't think I prepped the call for the show. I'll just tell you. It's a call coming out of New Jersey saying that he has wetsuit tan lines on his face because he's wearing a hood in New Jersey through the wintertime. So we've talked about the wetsuit tan line on the neck previously. And this is a new one for me, but he's saying that because he's
oval
surfing
face.
so often in the winter, he has an oval face tan from his hood. So barrel or not, wetsuit tan line on the face.
Huge barrel. Any wetsuit tan line is a barrel. Like there is no place. Of course, it is not aesthetically pleasing. Of course, it'll get people to think you're a freak, but your commitment to surfing, that's all that is right there. And beautiful. It is like a beautiful painting, like a Renoir.
It looks like a really poor makeup job.
Sure does.
You know, like sometimes you see the girls who have like the line that stops at their jawline
Yep.
and everything's pale below, but their face is a different color.
Yep.
This is exactly like that, except the line is pushed in a little bit more.
It's great though. That person surfing cold New Jersey enough to tan their face is a hero in my book.
It's hardcore.
Yeah.
If you're surfing that frequently in that cold of water, you deserve it. And yeah, that is the most core, most barrel.
If, and this is for those on the East Coast, if you happen across a oval faced tan in the wild and you're at a bar or a restaurant, buy that person a drink.
Totally.
Just send one over.
Absolutely. Hardcore.
Yep.
I agree. Barrel. Barrel or not, number 2, streaking at sporting events.
I'm going barrel. I'm saying anything. I mean, like the WSL, I think, that it always causes a nice awkward pause in the booth because they won't show it, obviously. So that's as close as we get to WSL dumb in other sports. But it's always funny where the announcers will kind of vaguely talk about it, like, oh, and there he goes. And like just hem and ha. It's great. I don't know where the tradition started.
I don't
know why it started, but when you catch them on YouTube and whatnot, they are funny. They are funny things.
Well, there's nothing funnier than seeing grown men working security trying to tackle an overweight dude with his dick flopping.
Yep. It is. I mean, it's pure comedy.
It's like, pure comedy.
I mean,
they don't want to do it. They're like,
No.
this is not what I signed up for.
No.
And I'm definitely going to get hit by that thing at some point when we're rolling around on the ground.
I mean, for sure. And the guy who does it, the person who takes off their clothes, jumps the fence and starts running around, like what went on in their mind to make them start to think that that's what they wanted to do?
Comedy.
I mean, they're comedy genius.
Comedy with a potential sex offense. You're going to have to register as a sex offender.
I mean,
and the comedy is worth it to them.
The comedy is worth going around your neighborhood, knocking on doors and saying, hi, I'm a sex offender. Yeah.
There is a rare one that you see where it's a hot chick doing it.
So rare.
But that's
it's like usually it's for a cause. When I've seen that, it's like for PETA or whatever. Like they are protesting, by which I'll also tip my cap to. If that's your protest, that's the one kind of awareness that an awareness campaign that I will get behind.
I agree.
It's got comedy as its.
I mean, it's such a funny concept. Like for the dude who's doing it, male genitalia has a lot of range. Let's say, like if you're fully erect, that's one end of the range. And when you're fully not, it's a there's a 90% difference between those two sizes.
But then also in that, you've got cold, you've got like a whole other variation.
And when you're running on a football field, don't care about what the weather is. It's not your best look. Let me just put it that way. You could be hung like a horse, but when you're running on a cold football field, it is not a proud moment for you and your manhood, which makes it additionally funny. The fact that they're willing to throw out all of their self kind of worth or any just for the joke and then be tackled in their nudity, our legs going to be spread open. All of it is amazing.
There should be an honest to goodness streaker Hall of Fame somewhere. I mean, where once you do, like if you do it well, right? If you don't pull the punch, if you're out there full stride, you dodge a couple guards, you're
Dude,
like there should be
makes it even better.
It's the best. There should be a Hall of Fame for them though.
Totally.
Where their comedy can live on.
Yeah, well, you're all the dignity you lost by showing everything, you've regained through our backpacking.
Yep.
Or
back padding.
There we
go. I mean, if anybody has a spare warehouse space, hit us up. We can start these. I think we could start it pretty easily. The Streaker Hall of Fame. It just has video monitors on the wall showing the greatest hits, right?
Yeah.
Little bio detail.
Well, I want to divide the warehouse. Half of it will be the Hall of Fame, and the other half will be a training
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
You know,
Streaker
where they have
training.
to. Yeah, exactly. So like a
Perfect.
football kind of setup. By the way, the waves are pumping.
Is it looking good?
Yeah, Jack Robinson just got a full stand-up barrel. He's
Waves
smoking.
pumping. Waves pumping means I can hopefully. I got John still riding on this one coming up.
You son of a gun.
Yeah. Am I going to go 2 for 2 victories?
That'd be insane. You should get bonus points if you do.
Yeah. I mean, if you go a whole season, but I probably just cursed it by talking about it right now.
Possibly. Leonardo Fioravanti is in the overlapping heat with Samuel Pupo.
The people's hero.
Yeah,
Go Leo.
Can't wait to hear what he has to say after he wins this heat.
So good.
Okay, final barrel or not. Playing video games as an adult. And this is directly related to 2 surf video games that are being advertised in the broadcast.
The Hurley one?
The WSL has one, and then Hurley's releasing one too. And so I'm like, why are they doing any of this? Like, I would never waste 1 minute playing any of those. But then I remembered a conversation I had last week when we were in Paso Robles with some of our friends that we were sharing the house with, where the adult male said,
he's a gamer.
He recently got a PS, whatever, is it 5 that they're on now? And after the kid goes to sleep, that's what he likes to do to wind down at night. I was like,
disgusts me.
So confused right now.
That disgusts me.
It does me too.
So here's the video. A video game is a complex barrel or not. It is great. And you'll get to do this with Austin when he becomes of age to go to Chuck E. Cheese and play video games, right? Like, it's fun. You win tickets and blah, de blah, or take to Dave and Buster's, whatever. If you're taking your kids to a place where there are video games,
arcade games,
yeah, then play those games. It's fun, right?
Yeah.
You'll have fun. Kids have fun. Everybody's having fun, right?
Yeah.
Barrel. Arcade, barrel. Phone is flat. If you're on your phone and you're like bored and you have like whatever, Bejeweled, what's the one where you like crush the jewels, whatever? I mean, are you considering those video games?
No.
Okay. So
because I'm talking more gamer.
So I'm saying then all the way down to if you are in your house with a PS2 or Xbox or whatever, and you're an adult male, no barrel, 0 barrel. It's shameful.
Yeah,
you should put those things away. But here's the sneaky thing. I'm going to say it jumps back to barrel if you go so far in that you get the brand new VR headset and you're a full VR gamer. Then I'm going to say you're back okay.
I'm open to the possibility of VR, like how that changes everything.
I'm going to say you're living in the weird future at that point. And so I'll give that person, I'll say, you do you. That's not my thing, but I'll call that a barrel. You sitting with a handheld controller, sitting crisscross applesauce, little bag of Doritos at your knee, playing your shoot 'em up. It's kooky. It is kooky and not chill.
I grew up playing video games and I had great affinity for them until I grew out of them in early high school. and it baffles me that other people didn't grow out of them, but I know the games have also developed and changed. So maybe they've kept pace with the person's maturity and growth. But where this all goes south for me, like there is a common denominator for every version of this story where I go, that's where it goes south, which is last week, our friend said, yeah, when the kid goes to sleep, this is how I spend my time. And I go, your wife is still awake, right? So whether it is scrolling Instagram or playing Candy Crush or playing the shooter game, if it's more than 15 minutes, and it's taking away from quality time with your loved ones, if your wife is sitting there tapping her foot going, honey, the bed is getting cold, and you're like, let me finish my game, you need to put that game away.
You've blown it. You're exactly right. That's a problem. Like, at least on your phone, you could put it down real quick. Phone games are a dirty little thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not cool to do, but it's understandable. It's like, whatever, small little dirty things
that got out of control.
Yeah, but it's fine. Just leave it there. Just play your 15 minutes. But to set up your console.
Yeah.
And again, though, once you're in the metaverse and your wife is tapping on you, you could say, "Go away. I'm with Pamela Anderson here in the metaverse.
And
I
you're
don't
in a
need you
chair
anymore."
that has a toilet built into it and a refrigerator on the side of it. I mean, yeah, that's an extreme example, but in general, limit yourself to 15 minutes. If you still got the addiction and you are playing those games, 15 minutes is a good limit.
Guess what I'm going to throw in? I just had a realization.
Hmm.
For the last little while, I will go to bed and think, well, it's a year, I'll say, give it a year, and say, I'm going to catch up on the day's news. And so I will scroll Apple News, my Apple News feed,
Mhm.
scroll, read, scroll, Washington Post, New York Times, ESPN, whatever, catching up on the day's news. I realized a couple days ago, that's the same as video games. I'm not really catching up on anything. All I'm doing is straight wasting time clicking clickbaity stuff, which I'm happy to create, but silly, don't want to read it. And thought, no, absolutely not. No more phones. I'm done. I am now getting a good book and reading good books in bed.
Good. That's a
Yeah.
far
Or-
better strategy.
Or watching a fine movie, or even not a fine movie. Yesterday, I got one for you.
Yeah.
Have you watched, I think it's called Physical 100?
I've seen it advertised.
Oh,
but I
yeah.
haven't watched it.
Started yesterday with the kid. It is good watching.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm ready for something new. But I agree with you. I have not engaged with the news in years now. Like, I intentionally avoid it. And I realize that anything that is newsworthy comes across the transom somehow, and I learn about it.
Yeah.
Everything else isn't actually newsworthy. It's strictly designed as entertainment to keep
That's
you
it.
engaged and enraged.
It's
That's all it is.
entertainment. You're precisely right. That's the
Yeah.
thing. If you want to know about what's going on in Ukraine right now, great, right? Like, go and check your news sources on that, whichever they are, and cross them and learn about something. The scrolling the news, you're learning nothing. You are
Yeah.
being entertained like a fool.
Yeah, completely, which is video game adjacent.
Same thing. That's what I'm saying. It's
Yep.
all part of the same. Entertaining yourself in dumb ways is
And
no barrel.
they do gamify it to a certain degree, the way
For
that it's
sure.
laid out and videos
sure.
and all this. So
Same diff. I thought I was being
Yeah.
wise. I thought, I'm just being an adult. People used to sit with a newspaper. I'm sitting on my phone. No, you were being
Yeah.
a fool. I was being a fool.
well, no video games, no barrel officially.
Yep.
Officially.
Sorry.
All right. Well,
everybody.
hey, thank you to athleticgreens.com/surf. Thank you to linkedin.com/surf. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you to our listeners.
All of you, thank you so much, listeners.
Yeah. And go watch the Sunset event. The waves are pumping. Jack Robinson, as expected, is living up to
Dominating.
his potential.
Great. It's Jack Robinson's
know.
year to lower trestles.
Yeah, it really is. I got a bet from somebody, or an email from a buddy after last week's show. He bet me $20. He thinks Jack Robinson's going to win the world title. $20. I took the opposite, so I'm
sure.
rooting against him.
I mean, I'm rooting for him to have such a dominant point lead at trestles and lose to number 2, Felipe Toledo.
I love it. I
Yep.
hope that happens.
It will.
All right, beachgrit.com, surfsplendorpodcast.com, Chaz Smith. Until next week.
Bon voyage.
All right.